Hi everyone, and welcome to Carson Sons. My name's Leslie. I'm a homemaker, a micro baker, and a homeschool mama of 5 boys, hence the sons part of the name. In this particular week, we had our Azure Standard order. So boys and I spent a morning making applesauce. Now, in retrospect, I forget that we are such a large family that if I actually want to put up applesauce, I need to get 4 to 5 times as much as we did in this order, as most of this was eaten within the week. After our applesauce cleanup, we sent the boys to do their lessons, and I start my day as a baker. So we had some traditional loaves on the menu today, along with one of my favorite things that I've been able to develop, and this is a sourdough concha. Mexican sweetbread is what this is. Concha means shell, which is both a representation of the streusel topping on top and the way it looks. So the way the streusel topping, so to speak, is placed on top, you score it, or sometimes they have actual cookie cutters that kind of give it this look of a seashell. And so as the bread rises, it kind of cracks through that streusel and it creates this really beautiful pattern. Today I'm going to run you through how to create a workflow in the midst of being a micro baker in your home. And I don't have a super allocated spot. I have created the spot in my dining space, which is just to the side of my kitchen. So it really flows in. And because this is still my home, we still live amongst all of this stuff, I'm going to try to make it the most beautiful I can while it being very utilitarian. Not everybody's going to be willing to kind of sacrifice a little bit of their space in order to do this. But if this is something that you have really dreamed about, it really is possible with just a little bit of thought process. But what I would say is really create a pattern and a system that works for you. So for me, my counters are used all the time for cooking. My kitchen table is eaten on all the time, and I am continuously wiping all of those spaces down. But what has really worked for me is having these big butcher blocks, because that gives me a space that I know nothing has touched it outside of my dough. I don't cook on it. I don't, cut vegetables on it. I just use it for dough. And so this gives me a space and a place that I know is clean continuously, that I can create bread on. So whether that's these conchas, whether it is shaping my bread, measuring my loaves before pre-shaping, all of these things are done in these 2 butcher blocks. I wipe them down, I put them away until the next use. So this just creates for me more of a peace of mind for my customers. What my bread is touching has not been touched by tiny little hands or by meal preps of any sort. And so that is one of my biggest things. Where are you going to create this space? Where are you going to allocate this tiny corner, even if it's in your kitchen, even if it's a smaller butcher block, that you can know for certain that your area and your workspace is going to be clean. And it takes a lot of little moving parts, especially if you don't want to have everything out all at once. But it really does take those extra steps of going, okay, I need my pastry shipping boxes. Let me pull those out. Let me pull out what I need. Let me put it back. Same with my bread bags. Those are in a container. I pull them out. I put them back. My wire cooling racks for my bread. I see a lot of micro bakers with these beautiful wooden shelves as cooling racks. And while I would absolutely love that because I think it's pretty, my space has been dedicated to my ingredients. And again, my ingredients for my bakery are completely separate than those that I use at home. And that is both more for inventory reasons and for the sake that I know that these things are not being muddled or used or dirtied up. As a baker for profit, I need to make sure that what I'm using and what I'm paying for the business is not necessarily crossing over to my family for my home use, and the same thing goes for home use things. If I'm using my grocery money, I am not going to use it for the bakery because that is my budget for groceries, right? So keeping those things separate for us just makes sense. This was not something that we did at the beginning because I was just using our personal money, but now that I have a separate business budget, I try to keep those numbers and those items separate. So again, back to the wire racks. While I love the idea of having those wooden racks where I can cool all of my bread and it's right there next to me, I could either have those or I could have this wire rack with all of my ingredients on it. But I think that you have to pick and choose what makes sense to you. For me, it made more sense to have my ingredients all out in my bakery area with a refrigerator so I can just cool and cold proof my bread before I bake it first thing in the morning, versus having a cooling rack there. I have enough cooling racks that fold up and down, those little wire racks that you see here, and I can pull those out, put them all out, cool my bread, and then put them away. So it really is trying to find a balance for you. And what I'm saying is maybe my personal setup might not work for you. But what I do challenge you to do, if this is of any interest to you to create your own business in micro bakery, is what workflow works for you and how can you create and allot a space that will do that well, because we're homemakers, making it lovely in our own way, whether it's utilitarian or not. So we have had a very mild winter here in southwestern Montana. There's been no snow. And just like that, we had our first cold snap. So we woke up to, I think the low was a negative 27 degrees, which is very cold. So it meant that this morning we took care of our chickens. We did a little extra work. It was definite need of some cozy fires and some hot chocolate. And I think that there's some magic to be said. Sometimes we want to push these uncomfortable temperatures away, or these seasons where we kind of have to hunker down. And rather than hunkering down and being angry about it, my husband and I have really talked about the fact that we get to make this mini staycation. It came on the weekend. We had no plans, so we can make it as fun and memorable as we can for ourselves and for our boys. Why fight the inevitable versus having a thankful heart for the ability to stay home, to have the ability to have provisions for these sort of times and be able to just enjoy the season, no matter how cold or how rough or how wild it is.